Okay, so the call is being recorded as we speak. So let's get started. Today we're going to be looking at safeguarding at level 2, which is the introduction to basic child protection. There's 3 different modules. We'll go through the first 2 and then have probably a 10-minute break. And then we'll do the last module, have some lunch, and then come back to do the prevent training. And then tomorrow we are looking at food safety and hygiene, and something else that went out of my mind. But I will send out a link. We'll probably use the same link as we do today, tomorrow. Before we get started, does anyone have any questions?
No.
Sorry. Yeah, Mel, just I'll join this until the Senko Forums training starts at 9:30. That's all right, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
No problem. So, introduction. We've got 4 parts and a self-assessment to this. So we'll go through the introduction first. At the end of this module, you should be able to describe the difference between the terms safeguarding and child protection, identify your own responsibilities for safeguarding and child protection, and explore how government legislation underpins early years practice. This introductory model explores the terms used in daily practice and the difference between safeguarding and child protection, and the definition of significant harm. Practitioners will identify the key responsibilities for safeguarding children in an early years setting. So, what is the difference between safeguarding and child protection? Child protection, as we know, is everybody's responsibility. So anyone who comes into contact with children and their families has a duty to keep them safe and promote positive outcomes. Just have a little think and maybe have a think about what the difference is between safeguarding and child protection, and then you can have your mics off and we will go through together. So you can just take your mic off if you have an answer. The difference between safeguarding and child protection?
Is safeguarding, yeah, so safeguarding, like when you promote the welfare of a child and keep them safe. And then child protection is like, I think when it's like specific actions that you take when a child's at risk or is suffering from some significant harm, maybe that might be abuse or neglect. So I don't know if that's the difference between them two, yeah.
Okay, what do we all think? Anyone else can share? I will just start choosing people.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, we deal with safeguarding issues in a nursery, don't we? So if we hear a child say something, we would obviously statement it, speak to a parent maybe, etc. Child protection, as Maz said, is sort of cruelty, etc.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. Thank you, Maz. So, safeguarding, it says, safeguarding children is all of the things that you do to keep them safe from harm in your daily practice, as Maz and Jenny both said. So, safeguarding and promoting the welfare of children is defined as providing help and support to meet the needs of children as soon as problems emerge. So, as it's been stated, as soon as you begin to see an issue, no matter how big or small that is, as soon as a child has disclosed something to you, you then start to look at how you can support and meet the needs of that child. Protecting children from maltreatment, whether that is within the home, including online or outside the home. Preventing impairment of children's mental and physical health or development. Ensuring that children grow up in circumstances consistent with the provision of safe and effective care. Promoting the upbringing of children with their birth parents or otherwise their family network through a kinship care arrangement. So, a kinship care arrangement might be where it's not safe or a child cannot be protected from harm when they're living in their family home. So it could be that they go to live with a relative, a family member, whether it's an auntie or uncle. Taking action to enable all children to have the best outcomes in line with the outcomes set in the Children's Social Care Network framework. And we'll come to that a little bit later. So thinking about your own daily practice and all of the different things that we do to keep our children safe, how many can you think of? So you can take your mics off and just shout some out for me. Different ways that we keep children safe in our daily practice.
We do
Registering
assessments.
all the policies.
Phone calls home if they don't turn up.
Risk
So-
assessments.
Is that what you look? I don't know if that is.
Yeah, all of that is all different ways that we keep children safe. What's something that we do, like myself or Jenny will do every morning, or that you do before you go out?
Risk
Checklist.
assessment.
Risk assessments.
Any more you can think of?
Maybe when we do sign in, sign out.
Yep, register, signing in, signing out.
Supervision, staffing, like you make sure that your guys are in ratio and you don't leave the children, I guess, alone or not enough staff in the room.
Yep. Anyone else wanting to add anything?
Routine.
Accident and incident forms.
Yeah. DBS checks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Also, maybe we have peer observations as well.
Yeah, all of that. Peer observations, the supervisions, the one-to-ones that you have. These are all different safeguarding measures to help support staff to get the best outcomes for children. So we've got making risk assessments, accident and medication forms, providing a safe and secure environment, checking the site security, hygiene routines, safe and healthy care procedures like nappy changing, cleaning activities, listening to what children say, observing children, maintaining required ratios, developing parent and family partnerships, making sure staff know about confidentiality of information, so not sharing information unnecessarily, and contributing to inductions, supervisions, appraisals, and peer observations. Good job, guys. I was quite proud of that one. So, child protection looks like making sure that anytime you take an action or concern, it moves from safeguarding into child protection. So we've put all of these things in place, the risk assessments and everything else. However, if we get a disclosure, we then need to take action. So that moves from safeguarding into child protection. Child protection is defined as part of safeguarding and promoting welfare, the activity that is undertaken to protect specific children who are suffering or likely to suffer significant harm. And those come from the Working Together to Safeguard Children document, which there is a copy in the staff room, and I can also share the links at the end. So to summarize, safeguarding is all the things that you do in your daily practice to keep children safe, and child protection is the action that you take when you have a concern about a child. So significant harm is defined as children who are suffering or likely to suffer significant harm. But what do we think significant harm might mean? I'm going to ask Deborah.
If they're, I don't know, like if their family is, or if they're, how can I put it? Maybe if they're a unique child,
Mm-hmm.
They won't be able to maybe talk to someone like anyone else would be able to talk to.
Yeah.
So they proper more without having to be able to tell someone,
Yeah.
you know.
So what kinds of things might they not be able to disclose to someone?
Not necessarily at the nursery, but if someone's touching them wrong,
Yeah.
or
Is it
things
abuse?
like,
Oh.
yeah, like physical abuse, or even
So you're right, you're on the right line. So a child who would be considered as suffering significant harm would be a child who is at the hands of abuse and can't express that. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Debbie. So the Children Act introduced the concept of significant harm as the threshold that justifies intervention in family life in the best interest of the children. So, for example, if you had a child who was coming into nursery that was hungry, they might not meet the threshold of significant harm because they're able to have those conversations, but also we are able to put that support in place so that they no longer suffer significant harm. Does that make sense? So it gives local authorities a duty to make inquiries to decide whether or not they should take action to safeguard or promote the welfare of a child who is suffering or likely to suffer significant harm. When we look at child protection and potential abuse, we must consider that piece of legislation. Local safeguarding partners, as in your local authority or the police, should publish a threshold document which sets out the local criteria for action in a way that is transparent, accessible, and easily understood. You can use your own local threshold document, usually found on the local authority's online safeguarding page, to help understand the threshold for action and the multi-agency responses to support a child's additional needs. So that was a lot of words to simply say that if, for example, you contact MASH, you would explain the situation to them. They would then decide whether or not they felt that that child was at risk of significant harm, and from that they would tell you the next steps to take. So there's a document that is available on the local authorities. So for us, it would be the Redbridge Safeguarding Hub, and on that page you'll find documents that explain the 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 reasons that they make the decisions for what is considered as significant harm. So roles and responsibilities in safeguarding, we say it all of the time, safeguarding is everyone's responsibility. So, you know, when I'm asking you to complete the food safety checks, that isn't one person's job, that is a role for everybody. When you're checking your fridge temperatures, when we're getting food out and defrosting it, all of those things, as well as making sure the garden is set up correctly, making sure that we remove any broken toys, making sure that we're listening to children and recording and reporting information in the correct way, that is everybody's responsibility. Sorry, let me just let this person in.
I did it.
Thank you. So during your daily practice, your safeguarding responsibilities should include following the setting safeguarding policies and procedures to keep children safe from harm, being vigilant in identifying the signs and indicators of abuse, reporting any concerns that you have, and following up those concerns to make sure that an action has been taken. Obviously, quite often, if you reported something on my concern, you might not necessarily get an update as to what has happened, because, you know, it's important that we remain confidential. However, you do have the right to ask. So if you ever feel that your concerns haven't been taken seriously because you haven't been given the necessary information, it's important that you go to the person that you raised the concerns to, or your designated safeguarding lead and question that. So consider what tools you have to inform your own conduct and professional practice in safeguarding. We use our safeguarding policies, the staff code of conduct, as well as any information or any training that you receive within the setting. But we also use supervisions to question if you are concerned about any children, as well as staff meetings, safeguarding training, the frameworks that we look at, and policies and procedures. So as early years settings, we probably have more than 90 policies and procedures actually, and each one reflects what practitioners should do as part of their everyday practice in order to keep children safe. So there's government legislation as well as national policy that underpins our policies and procedures. Government legislation would be things like the Children Act, the Children Act 1989, as well as the Children Act 2004, the Childcare Act 2006, Safeguarding Vulnerable Groups Act 2006, the Counter-Terrorism and Security Act 2015, and Children and Social Work Act from 2017. So legislation is followed by government guidance, which then puts in place national guidance. So that's when Ofsted would step in, and we use the frameworks that that support our teaching and learning and safeguarding children. We then put those into policies and procedures, and you guys then put those policies and procedures into daily practice, such as your phone calls home to parents, your risk assessments, and your morning health and safety checks. So the Safeguarding Vulnerable Groups Act 2006 was implemented following the Bichard inquiry into the Soham murders of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman, who were murdered by their school caretaker, who was later found to have a criminal record. I think he is probably one of the most widely spoken about people within safeguarding. I don't know if you remember him. Things keep popping out of my head, such as this guy's name, but he was employed by
Ian Huntley.
That's the one. Thank you. So yeah, he was employed as a caretaker, and no checks were done on him. There was no DBS check. Even his references were from local people, like families, but they weren't from anybody with a substantiated procedure or policy around safeguarding. So the Act was introduced to avoid people who were deemed unsuitable to work to have access to children and vulnerable adults. Again, that's where the previously used to be called CRB checks, they're now called DBS checks. That's where the DBS check service was introduced, and it became mandatory that you had to be able to apply for one to be able to work with children and vulnerable adults, but also you have a duty to report anyone to the disclosure and barring service if they've been given a criminal record or anything like that. So it was added to the Ofsted's regulatory inspection handbook and the EYFS statutory framework, meaning that all staff working with children must be suitable to do so and have relevant checks in place. Again, that is why we ask, and it is part of our policy, to have you on the update service, because that will automatically update us and alert us to anybody who is going to be deemed unsuitable to work. If you've received your new DBS in the last 30 days, can you please make sure that it is on the update service? You might want to check the date, Mercy. Your safeguarding practice should include ongoing suitability checks These will take place during supervision meetings, regular checks through the online DBS update service, and doing suitability questionnaires. I think we last did one in February, just to make sure that not only that you were physically able to work with children, but also that you were deemed responsible enough to work with children. How confident are you with our policies and procedures? Let me ask Amina.
It's as in the policies are in the staff room, in the folder and on
Yeah.
the wall.
Yeah. So how confident are you with the safeguarding policies and procedures that we have in place?
Oh, I'm very confident.
Do you think everyone would feel the same?
I think everyone, maybe the newcomers, but otherwise I think everyone would be.
I think this is why it's important, because you're absolutely right. Obviously, newcomers, whilst we might read or browse through those safeguarding procedures, and at the start of everyone's employment, they have to do safeguarding training. However, whether or not that sticks or how much of that sticks isn't always relevant. So it's important that we as practitioners and employees are sharing that best practice, explaining things. If you see something, rather than consider that that person is just evil, actually perhaps it's information that they're not aware of. Even if they have been told before, they might not recognize the importance of it. So it's important that we as safeguarding partners, because everyone is responsible for safeguarding, are sharing that information. So, that was quick. Question 1, true or false? You can just use, let me see the chat. You can just use a thumbs up or a thumbs down in the chat. There is no difference between the terms safeguarding and child protection. True or false?
False.
Who's that, Sarah?
Visa.
Oh, thank you, Avisa. Well done, Avisa. Listen, I've got to be honest, Avisa's recently done some safeguarding training and I've seen her work and she has absolutely smashed it. Well done.
Oh,
Thank you, everyone. You've done really well, Avisa, with your safeguarding for your course. Safeguarding responsibilities for all staff include which of the following? So, do we believe that it includes being vigilant in identifying signs and indicators of abuse?
Yeah.
Do we believe that it includes following the setting safeguarding policies and procedures to keep children safe from harm?
Yes.
Thank you. So does it mean having trust in what parents tell you about an incident or injury?
I'd say no.
No, because what if they're lying?
Exactly.
Exactly. What if they are lying? Is it important to report any concerns that you have?
Yes.
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 Well done. So in that module, we have looked at the difference between the terms safeguarding and child protection and the definition of significant harm. We've explored how government legislation impacts early years practice by underpinning daily practice through national guidance and policies and procedures, and identified our own responsibilities for safeguarding children. That was a nice quick module. So, module 2. At the end of this module, we should be able to describe the signs and symptoms of physical abuse, identify the locations of accidental and non-accidental injuries, describe the signs and symptoms of sexual abuse. We're going to look at some of the signs and symptoms of physical and sexual abuse and you'll be able to identify the most common places for childhood injuries to occur and sites on the body that may indicate non-accidental injuries. You review a real-life case scenario to consolidate your understanding of accidental and non-accidental injuries, and a scenario to determine reporting procedures for a sexual abuse concern. So, as we already know, there's 4 most common types of abuse, which include physical, neglect, sexual, and emotional. But we're going to start here with looking at physical abuse. Physical abuse is defined as a form of abuse which may involve hitting, shaking, throwing, poisoning, burning, scalding, drowning, suffocating, or otherwise causing a physical harm to a child. Physical harm may also be caused when a parent or carer fabricates the symptoms of a child or deliberately induces illness on a child. So Debbie's getting ready to type. Yeah.
Mel, can I ask? You know, it used to be spend sexual, physical, emotional, neglect, and domestic. It's not domestic anymore.
It is, but we're just looking at the moment, we're just looking at the 4 most common types.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's okay. So have a think about the signs and symptoms you might observe in a child that's being physically abused, and you can just drop them in the chat for me, please.
Bad weight, we have changing, hitting, punching, kicking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good one. Was that you, Treasure? Actions towards others. Yeah, and repeating the behaviour. Lovely, thank you. So we've got unexplained injuries, burns, bruises, scalds, marks, children with frequent injuries, unexplained or unusual fractures or broken bones, wearing clothing that covers injuries, bald patches in the hair, fear of physical contact, breathing problems from drowning, suffocation or poisoning, a decline in their general well-being, and all of those significant changes in behaviour. So whether that's them acting out or whether they're being aggressive towards others. So as part of their everyday activities and development, children have accidents and get bruised and scraped. So it's important to be able to recognise the difference between typical accidental injury sites on the body and those likely to indicate non-accidental injuries. So just take a minute to think about where you might expect to see accidental injuries on children and drop them in the comments for me. Yeah, definitely. All of those common ones where they're tripping and falling. So the elbow scrapes, the knee scrapes, the forehead where they don't quite recognize that they've grown and just start walking into things on their shins. So head injuries tend to involve the parietal or occipital bones or forehead, their nose, where they fall and just like to land on their face, their chin, hands, as you guys said, elbows, knees, and shins. So remember that accidental injuries typically involve bony parts of the body and also match the history of the accident. So a child, the parent says to you, oh, they were running in the park and tripped over on the concrete, but actually they've got bruise marks on their shoulders, then that doesn't fall in line with the history of the accident. Bruises that may be seen as usual childhood injuries include bumps and bruises to the head, forehead, nose, center of the chin, especially on toddlers that are learning to walk, but also bruises to the knees and shins, as we've said, and other bony parts of the body. So have another think and think about where you might see non-accidental injuries on children.
Bruising under the arm.
Bruising under the arms. Debbie was like, listen, I'm going to beat Jenny.
Well, do you know what it is? I can't do the chat and I'm too slow on the chat, so it's easier just to talk.
No problem. When there's only like a few of us, it's much easier anyway. Yep, stomach, arms, back, armpits, where they've kind of been grabbed. Private areas. Shoulders, thank you. So yeah, eyes, soft tissues of the cheek, ears, like pinch marks, ears, side of the face and neck, top of shoulders, head injuries on non-mobile babies. So if you've got a baby who is 2 months old and they have a head injury, that might alarm you to it being non-accidental. So any groin or genital injury, inner aspects of the thighs, as Treasure said, and the soles of the feet. It's an interesting one. Remember, concerns are raised by injuries to both sides of the body. So, as I said, where you might imagine that someone has grabbed a child by the shoulders or the arms, injuries to soft tissue, injuries with particular patterns like a shoe or handprint, an injury that doesn't fit the explanation, delays in presentation. So that could mean that, we've seen a bruise on Wednesday, but the accident happened on Saturday, and untreated injuries. Do you actually know that it's legal to smack your child, but it's not legal to leave a handprint from the smack? So if you were to smack your child, that would by itself not cause alarm to the authorities or not pose as a significant risk of harm. But if you were to slap them and leave a mark, then it does. So a little bit of a warning, because we are going to be talking about some real life scenarios, and I know that sometimes these can be quite hard to hear, although we've all heard them several times. I don't think it ever gets any easier. So we're going to talk a bit about Baby P. He was a very high profile case from, I believe, South London, or the case was dealt with actually by several different local authorities, and he was at risk of significant harm, and he was failed by so many different authorities that it actually led to his death. So these are pictures of his injuries. As you can see as well, some of them are, oh my goodness, are quite old. Yeah. So thinking back to what we spoke about with the non-accidental and accidental injuries, do you think that where his injury sites are fall in line with accidental or non-accidental. You can put a thumbs up for accidental, a thumbs down for non-accidental. Yeah, I would agree, because we spoke about, you know, the ear area, this triangular area here, but as well as black eyes, the bruising across his nose. Lovely.
Also, I remember about that case that they put, when the people came to visit, they put chocolate on his face. So you
Yeah,
couldn't see any of the bruising, you couldn't see
yeah,
anything. So it just said, oh, he's just had a treat.
yeah.
So it
And
wasn't recognised.
but and it's really sad, because even that in itself, like, people, even social workers are almost too afraid to think deeper than surface level, because to me, walking into that setting, and I don't know whether this is the practitioner in us, but I'm sure any one of you would be like, why have you not cleaned him then? You know, why have you not got a wipeout? We're just gonna leave the chocolate on his face while I'm here as the social worker. That in itself to me would raise significant questions. And I implore you all to look deeper than just the surface, because, you know, we have, even to the point where we have children who walk into the nursery whose faces do actually have chocolate on them.
Yeah.
But we're not going to leave them there all day, are we? So make sure you're asking more than the surface questions.
But he
So
had also had older bruises and stuff. Like he went to the hospital. They took him hospital. He had older bruises. So wouldn't the social worker have concerns anyway to check
yeah,
if they're already going? They should have just wiped him and seen.
but the issue with that, again, which is why new legislation came into place, because prior to that, we didn't have MASH, we didn't have that cross communication and that multi-agency working. And actually, you know, all of these things, all of these legislations, unfortunately, come into place based off of cases like this. So it takes a really significant death of a baby for us, as you know, as a society, to put things into place to stop that from happening. And unfortunately, it happens too often. So during social worker visits, baby P's injuries were hidden by antibacterial cream and chocolate. So be vigilant when you have a concern. Abusers and potential abusers can use tactics to hide injuries and explain bruises. As frontline practitioners working with children and families, it's essential to recognise indicators of abuse that may cause significant changes in children's behaviour or a decline in children's general well-being. Question injuries and explanations given for injuries. Ensure you share information with other professionals and take immediate action if you have any concerns. So that's when we always say, put it on my concern. It doesn't matter how small it is, make sure you put it on my concern. Have those records of conversations. You know, if you've had a conversation at the gate about a cut or bruise that you've seen on a child, when you go back in that room, pop that message on family, or on the child's profile, there is a safeguarding tab where you can make, there's a notes tab where you can make any safeguarding notes, anything that you want anyone to keep an eye on, and you can mark it that it's a safeguarding note too. If you can't access that, come to me, because it could just be a permissions issue, but that is also available on there, and parents can't see it, but staff would be able to see it. So if you just write a note, it doesn't have to be anything confidential, just a note saying, notice this, saw this. Make sure you're completing those accident forms for an injury that is noticed from home, because again, that then goes to the parents, and that is your record to safeguard yourself, to say that you are working to safeguard the children in our care. So moving on to sexual abuse, which is defined as forcing or enticing a child or young person to take part in sexual activities, not necessarily involving a high level of violence, and whether or not the child is aware of what is happening. The activities may involve physical contact, including assault by penetration, non-penetrative acts such as masturbation or kissing, rubbing or touching the outside of clothing. It may also include non-contact activities such as children looking at or in the production of sexual images, watching sexual activities, encouraging children to behave in sexually inappropriate ways, or grooming a child in preparation for abuse. Sexual abuse can take place online, and technology can be used to facilitate offline abuse. So, you know, I think especially at the moment, there's a lot going on in the media about sexual abuse being perpetrated by adult males. In recent years, should I say, there have been a lot more women who have been highlighted to be committing acts of sexual abuse. Hence why we now have the Working Together to Safeguard Children document alongside the Baby P case. There were also incidents where there was a woman who was taking photos of the nappy changes that she was completing, and then she was actually selling them to people online. So whilst it's, I think for decades, actually forever, it's always been assumed that sexual abuse is perpetrated by males. Actually, there's probably a lot more females who have been doing it, but would likely have gotten away with it over the period of time because of the view that women are naturally the nurturers, so they wouldn't possibly. So thinking about the signs and symptoms that you may observe in a child that is being sexually abused, just pop some ideas down into the chat for me. Somebody got their hand up. Advanced language, that's a really good one. You know, those children who are having really explicit conversations and having those discussions, or recognizing words that they just should not be aware of. Yep, not wanting to be alone with people, all of those, being told to keep secrets. Lovely. Last one, Deborah. Self-harm, yeah. Don't want to go home. Yep, so the signs and symptoms of sexual abuse include sexual knowledge that does not fit with the child's age or stage of development, as Treasure said. Children who ask others to behave sexually or play sexual games. Unexplained changes in personality, behaviour or well-being. Regression in their development. Sexually explicit drawings or sexualised role play. Itching or pain or bleeding. Significant change in their behaviour. A decline in their general well-being. Significant changes in children's behaviour. and concerning comments for a child. Yeah, self-harm, low self-esteem, all of those. I just want to touch briefly on this part here where it says children who ask others to behave sexually or play sexual games. I think we've all come across incidents where, for example, you would have 2 or 3 children in the toilets. I don't know why they love to play in the toilets, which might cause you to be alarmed, because we know that toileting is a private time and we don't expect other children to be in the same cubicle as others. There is on the NSPCC website a traffic light of behaviours that would be that would be perceived as normal play and normal exploration. And I will share it with you. I'll make a note of it now to share it with you, because it highlights what is normal behaviour or considered to be normal behaviour, exploratory behaviour, and what is considered to be dangerous behaviour. That traffic light I've shared with parents before, because again, I think we assume that if a boy and a girl are in the toilet together, then the boy is likely doing something that they shouldn't be. But I think it's important that we're aware of it so that we can discern between the two as to whether or not we think that that's a child exploring and we need to have a conversation, or whether or not we think that that's a child that might be suffering significant harm. Nonetheless, you can always go to MASH, explain what you've seen or what you've heard, and share that information. And that's even after you've reported something, even if you don't think that the advice that you've been given by your designated safeguarding lead or anybody else is correct, you can always check that for your own peace of mind. So, safeguarding scenario part 1 and 2. Olivia is 2 years and 10 months old and comes into nursery every morning. Olivia has a visual impairment, and to maintain her attachments and support her development, her key person, Sam, has been transitioned from the baby room into the toddler room with her. Olivia is a happy little girl and loves to be with her friends, but today she has been upset and hasn't wanted to get involved in any of the activities on offer. Sam checks Olivia's contact log and the room message board to see if Mum has left any message to explain why Olivia may be upset today. During the session, Sam takes her to the nappy changing area, which Olivia usually enjoys as she likes to watch the sparkling lights on the ceiling and play with the sensory wall. As Sam tries to remove her nappy, Olivia becomes upset and tries to stop her, saying, "No, no, ouch." As the nappy is removed, Sam notices that Olivia's genitalia look very red and swollen, and there's a spot of blood in her nappy. What do you think Sam should do next? You can choose. You can either type in the chat or you can just take your mic off.
Ask what happened and see if she tells you, and then report it to your room leader, and then write it down on write it down on my concern, and then tell your safeguarding lead.
To your safeguarding lead, Sarah said about perhaps keeping the nappy to one side, provided there's no poo in it, please, Sarah.
Sorry, I mean, like, because my writing is sometimes I missed, keep the evidence through maybe photos that I want to write, but I just pressed wrongly.
It's fine. I knew what you meant. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So, would you observe Olivia over the next week to see if the redness and swelling improve? Would you do nothing at all because babies get nappy rash? Or would you immediately report what she's noticed to the settings designated safeguarding lead? 1, 2,
Okay.
or 3?
3.
Sorry, I mean, I answered for everybody.
3.
3, 3, 3.
Okay.
Thank you. So, it's now been 2 weeks since you reported Olivia's sore genitals to the DSL. She asked you some questions about Olivia and took some notes, telling you to leave it with her to follow up. She told you that Olivia and her parents are neighbours. Olivia and her parents are her neighbours. She knows them well, as they are both doctors in the local surgery. She told you that she is sure that there's nothing to worry about, as they are a lovely family. You've since reported a further injury to the DSL. You spotted dark-coloured bruising on her genitals, and you are concerned as you haven't heard anything back from the DSL. What should you do next? I'd like to have
Contact
contact MASH. Anyone else? I feel like Jenny wants to say something.
Why me?
Because I feel like I can hear you, like in my head, I can hear your voice, like being like, well.
Well, I'll go punch those parents for starters.
Because it's this bit here, isn't it? Like where they say, like, oh, their parents are neighbours. She knows them well, and they're both doctors. And I'm like, so okay, because they're doctors, we're making the assumption that, you know, this child couldn't be at risk of significant harm. But when her parents are busy doctoring, and Olivia's not at nursery, is she being left in the care of somebody else? Like, are people okay?
don't know what happens behind closed doors. They could have all happy, smiling faces when they come out, but indoors it's a completely different scenario.
Exactly. So, would you prompt the DSL and ask about an outcome? Prompt the DSL, ask about an outcome, and if there is no outcome, report your concerns externally. So, whether that's to social services, MASH, NSPCC, police, or leave it with the DSL because she knows best. She's not concerned. 1, 2, or 3. Follow safeguarding procedures.
2. But also, I think as well for everybody, like if you weren't happy with saying like something that I had done, I would then say, if you're not happy, then obviously go to you as well, go above me, and
Yeah.
like you, I would then go above you, if that makes sense.
100%. You know, just because somebody is a designated safeguarding lead, it doesn't mean that they will always get it right, which is why myself personally, I always go to MASH or the LADO, because at the very least they will give you the advice as to what is safest, and that way you've done your best to safeguard that child. But you also, it's important that you also safeguard yourself, because as with baby P, so many people just walked away and didn't fight for that baby, didn't repeat any actions, and they just took the word of other people that they don't actually know. So make sure that you safeguard yourself too. Safeguarding is your responsibility, and you must report any concerns you have to keep Olivia safe from further harm. The DSL may be making assumptions based on the family's profession and the image she sees of them portrayed in the local community. Sexual abusers come from both genders, every social class, financial background, and profession. Practitioners must follow the indicators of abuse and report their concerns. It's the responsibility of social services to investigate further based on the evidence that they have gathered. So, as we've all said, if you are still concerned, it's okay for you to go to MASH yourself, because then you've safeguarded yourself, your setting, and that child, and social services will then do the investigation on your behalf. We've whizzed through that. So, which of the following may indicate a child is being physically abused? Children with frequent injuries, yay or nay?
Yeah.
Cute. Unexplained or unusual broken bones.
Yeah.
Unexplained injuries, burns, bruises, scalds, bite marks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Developmentally inappropriate expectations being imposed on children.
Yeah.
Partially correct. What do you think was incorrect there?
Maybe the last one.
Last one.
The one with the X on it. Yeah. So the developmentally inappropriate expectations, what area of abuse did we say that would likely be?
What area?
Sexual.
Sexual abuse, yeah. So signs and symptoms of sexual abuse: dehydration, itching, pain or bleeding in the genitals or anal area, drawing sexually explicit pictures or engaging in sexualized role play,
Yeah.
sexual knowledge that does not fit with the child's age or stage of development. What about dehydration? No, Rouge said no. Well done. Lovely, thank you. So we've identified the signs and symptoms of physical and sexual abuse and looked at the places on the body where common childhood injuries occur. We've also looked at sites on the body that might indicate non-accidental injuries and used real-life scenarios to consolidate understanding of accidental and non-accidental injuries and reporting sexual abuse. We are going to take a 10-minute break because we've whizzed through those first two parts, and then we'll come back and complete the last module. If you can all come back at, this is so random, but 10:18. Let's make it 10 minutes on the nose. And I'm going to mute. Guess who's back?
Hola.
Do you know what I want? I want to go and sit in a cafe somewhere and eat bacon.
I'm that bad too.
That's what we should have done.
No,
We
not
should
me. I'm
just-
not allowed to eat bacon.
You don't have to come.
You could have that turkey bacon.
Oh yeah, that's
Exactly.
true.
You have turkey bacon. Me and Jenny will be really naughty. And then we'll all complain tomorrow that we put on weight this week. So, you know. Story of my life. Right, we're going to get started back because I actually think we might finish a little bit before 2 o'clock today if we play our cards right. So, module 3 is looking at emotional abuse and neglect. There are 5 parts to the module: introduction, emotional abuse, neglect discussion, and then how you respond to a child's disclosure with the self-assessment. After that, we have 2 more modules. I think we'll whiz through this, then we'll have lunch. So by the end of this module, you should be able to identify the signs and symptoms for emotional abuse and neglect and identify what to do if a child reveals abuse. Emotional abuse may also be referred to as psychological abuse. As well as being one of the 4 most common types of abuse, it is also present in all other types. For example, a child being physically abused will also be emotionally harmed. Working together to safeguard children defines emotional abuse as the persistent emotional maltreatment of a child so as to cause severe and persistent adverse effects on the child's emotional development. It may involve conveying to a child that they're worthless or unloved, inadequate, or valued only so far as they meet the needs of another person. Not giving the child opportunities to express their views, deliberately silencing them, or making fun of what they say or how they communicate. Sorry. Age or developmentally inappropriate expectations being imposed on them. These may include interactions that are beyond a child's developmental capability, as well as an overprotection and limitation of exploration and learning, or preventing the child participating in normal social interaction. Seeing or hearing the ill treatment of another, serious bullying, including cyberbullying, causing children frequently to feel frightened or in danger, or the exploitation of or corruption of children. Some level of emotional abuse is involved in all types of maltreatment of a child, though it may occur by itself. So again, having to think about the signs and symptoms you might observe in a child that is being emotionally abused. Can you please put some ideas in the chat for me? Yeah, good being withdrawn, becoming more quiet, temper tantrums, being overly affectionate. Yeah. You know, that child that's almost looking for validation and love from somebody else. So we've got all of those: speech difficulties, low self-esteem, self-harm, withdrawal, aggression, struggling to control their emotions, lacking confidence, not having a close relationship with their parent, struggling to maintain relationships, acting in a way that's not appropriate to their age, changing their behaviour, and a decline in their general well-being. All children can experience and be adversely affected by domestic abuse in the context of their home life, where domestic abuse occurs between family members, including where those being abusive do not live with the child. Experiencing domestic abuse can have a significant impact on children. In England, the Domestic Abuse Act 2021 recognises in law for the first time that children are victims if they see, hear, or experience the effects of domestic abuse. So this is what Amina was talking about earlier as to whether or not it was a type of abuse by itself. And now there's actually an act that safeguards and puts it into law that children should not be witness to domestic abuse, because that is in itself a type of emotional abuse. So neglect is when a child's basic physical and psychological needs are not being met. It's a form of child abuse that can have serious and long-lasting impacts on a child's life. It can cause serious harm and even death. Neglect is defined as the persistent failure to meet a child's basic physical and psychological needs, likely to result in a serious impairment of the child's health or development. Neglect may occur during pregnancy as a result of maternal substance abuse. So, if you are pregnant and drinking, and your child now is likely to become alcohol dependent throughout your pregnancy, that is considered a type of neglect. So you can be charged and convicted of neglect without even physically having the baby being born. Once a child is born, neglect may involve a parent or carer failing to provide adequate food, clothing, and shelter, protect a child from physical and emotional harm, ensure adequate supervision, ensure access to appropriate medical care or treatment, or be able to provide suitable education. Neglect is the most common type of abuse, with around 1 in 10 children in the UK affected. According to an NSPCC report, it's also found that the concerns around neglect appear on over half of children who are subject of a child protection plan or on a child protection register in the UK. So children who are already known to social services, around half of those children would be experiencing neglect also. So thinking about the signs and symptoms we observe in a child that's neglected, can you please drop in the comments some ideas?
So, Mel, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
You just mentioned about the home education, when people
Yeah.
take their kids out of school.
Yeah.
So, if they're not known to, like, the authorities, whatever,
Yeah.
when they go on to doing home learning,
Yeah.
what happens to them then?
So if they're not known, once you have to. Sorry, let me start again. You still have to provide the information to the local authority about your child's education.
Right.
So when the child leaves school, or when you defer and decide that your child isn't going to school,
Yeah.
you have the duty to inform the local authority about what your child is doing.
Is that, do you have to keep them up to date? Because I can imagine that would be quite a
task. Because how do
task.
you? Yeah. So
Yeah.
there is like within the education department, there is like an entire system for home learning. And whilst you don't have to follow a specific curriculum as a home educator, you do have to be able to provide information to the local authority of what it is you're doing. How regulated that is, I don't know.
So I'm just thinking about what you're saying about, you know, like things getting missed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
You
it's
know,
quite
they're at
scary,
risk, aren't they?
actually.
Yeah.
Because
Okay, no worries. I just wanted to clear that up.
thank you.
Thank you.
But it is really scary. Lovely, thank you. So children who are failing to thrive, children with poor attendance and punctuality, untreated or reoccurring illnesses, poor personal hygiene, whether it's their clothes or they're not washed, their clothes are too small, children who are living in dangerous conditions, constantly hungry, tired, poor language or social skills, significant change in behaviour, and a decline in their general well-being. These are like reasons why your parent partnerships are really important, because, you know, there are, unfortunately, some people who actually are in positions where they cannot afford to feed their child. And that's where we step in and to support that parent, whether that's finding access to food banks for parents or, you know, doing clothes drives, all of those things. As a community, I think if a lot more people were to pay attention, a lot of these less significant neglect cases would arise, because there are simple things that we can make sure that we're doing. Parents might not even recognize that their children's clothes, you know, are too small because they've been in the nursery bag forever and they haven't paid attention and they're busy. But it's important to remember as well that all of these cases of neglect don't just happen in poor families or in families where, you know, the parents are doctors or the parents are middle class, for example. Cases of neglect can happen with any child.
I think
Neglect.
some parents
Go on,
are
Deb.
as well, if they know that, you know, their child's in clothes that are too small for them, but are too embarrassed to ask anyone
Exactly.
or to somewhere to get the clothes or food or whatever they need for them.
Yeah, and I think that's the scary part, isn't it? Like, we kind of have been growing up in a world where people don't want to be considered as the charity case, but actually that could make the biggest difference to a family's life. So having your eyes and ears open and just low key finding ways that you can support our families, I think, is really important. So neglect is considered to be at least as damaging, if not more so, than other forms of abuse, because its impact is the most far-reaching and difficult to overcome. Neglect in the early years may be most harmful from a point of view of long-term mental health or social functioning. Practitioners must use their knowledge of child and family to identify indicators of abuse. Having just one of the signs and symptoms may not mean a child is being abused. For example, a child with poor language or social skills. This may be a result of a speech or language delay. Practitioners must use their professional knowledge and curiosity to look at the whole picture of a child, both inside and outside the setting. Again, why home visits are so important in the early years. And we haven't been doing really home visits since COVID times. And I know one of the other nurseries, Queen's Park, have recently been doing them because they're trying to assess the behaviour needs of the children before they come into the setting. And again, that is another form of support that we can actually put in place for a child who we do think would benefit from us being able to see inside the setting and outside the setting. And that's obviously where MAS will come in also. So, responding to a child revealing abuse, we call that a disclosure. When a child gives you information, whether they knowingly give you that information or not, we call it a disclosure. And it's used to describe them telling the person that abuse is happening. Some local authorities may use different terminology. Some may say disclosure, and some may use children revealing abuse. There are many obstacles, both physically and emotionally, that prevent children from talking about abuse happening to them, whether that's fear or loyalty, threats of violence, them not realizing that they're being abused, feelings of shame or embarrassment, or being unable to verbalize the abuse that's happening to them. Becoming a trusted adult through developing secure attachments with children and providing safe environments enable us to provide opportunities for children to talk about what is happening to them outside of the setting. This might be a child verbally telling you about abuse, or it could be actions or comments during their play experiences. So when in responding to a child revealing abuse, should you stay calm, listen carefully, try not to be shocked? Thank you. Making sure you write an accurate account of what a child has said during a disclosure is important. For example, a child who had been abused disclosed that a father had been the perpetrator. This was recorded as dad in the written account. When investigated, the perpetrator was found to be a priest who was also known as father. Ensure you do not interrupt a child with a barrage of questions so that you can write it all down whilst the child is talking. This is likely to stop the child from talking to you. You must listen to the child as they talk. If they tell you that somebody abused them, e.g., mummy slapped me in the face, repeat back what the child has said to ensure that you've heard it correctly. Your mummy slapped you in the face. If the child confirms this, then ask open questions such as, tell me what happened, or can you tell me more? Listening to a revelation of abuse can be very upsetting, so ensure that you seek support from your DSL manager or wellbeing lead. So if you do need support, or you've reported something, or you're experiencing something, make sure you go to your designated safeguarding lead, me as your manager, or Amina as our wellbeing lead. So, tick all that apply. Emotional abuse is described as the persistent emotional maltreatment of a child so as to cause severe and persistent adverse effects on the child's emotional development and may involve which of the following? Does it involve failure to provide adequate food and clothing? Emotional abuse. Does emotional abuse include failure to provide adequate food and clothing and shelter? I know we spoke about how emotional abuse is intertwined into all of them.
That's neglect, actually.
Actually, exactly.
Sorry.
It's fine. That's what I was getting at. Seeing or hearing the ill treatment of another.
Yes.
Age or developmentally inappropriate expectations being imposed on children. Unexplained injuries, burns or bruises. Correct. Seeing and hearing ill treatment of another and developmentally inappropriate expectations are signs of persistent emotional maltreatment. So thinking about neglect now, would that include itching, pain or bleeding in the genitals? Does it include untreated or recurring illness or nappy rash? Does it include failing to thrive? Does it include children who are living in dangerous conditions, i.e. around drugs, alcohol or violence?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Ding, ding, ding. In this module, we've looked at how the signs and symptoms of emotional abuse and neglect and identified what to do if a child discloses abuse to you. Use the button below to go to the next module. So I actually don't think we did identify clearly what to do if a child discloses. So just as a little recap, remember when a child shares information with you, be clear in what you record down. Only record exactly what the child has said and described, and don't change the wording in there. Repeat it back to the child so that you know that that was correct. And then with that information, you then go to your DSL. And for us, we would record that information on my concern. Okay. So module, I want to say 4. Yeah, module 4. In this module, we are going to build on the 4 most common types of abuse and identify further types of abuse that can happen to children. These include female genital mutilation, breast ironing, honor-based abuse, child abuse linked to faith or belief, or child sexual exploitation, child criminal exploitation, county lines and trafficking, and modern slavery. We'll explore the signs and symptoms of domestic abuse and the impact it has on children, and we will explain how children need to be protected online and how practitioners can ensure their own online safety. Additional types of abuse are female FGM, breast ironing, honor-based abuse, child abuse linked to faith, child criminal exploitation, child sexual exploitation, county lines, child trafficking and modern slavery, domestic abuse, and peer-on-peer abuse. So Amina was asking earlier about the domestic abuse again, but we'll also cover more sensitive subjects that are considered less common but do happen and have happened in Redbridge as well. So let's have a look at what FGM is. FGM is a procedure where the female genital organs are injured or changed and there is no medical reason for this. It's frequently a very traumatic and violent act for the victim and can cause harm in many ways. The practice can cause severe pain and there may be immediate and long-term health consequences, including mental health problems, difficulties in childbirth, causing danger to the child and mother, and or death. And that is from the multi-agency statutory guidance on female genital mutilation. FGM is illegal in the UK. It's a practice which takes place worldwide in at least 30 countries in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. It also takes place within parts of Western Europe and other developed countries, primarily among immigrant and refugee communities. The age at which FGM is carried out varies enormously according to the community. Don't you just love how they put these really cute, pretty squares to talk about FGM? So it can happen just after birth, during childhood or adolescence, just before marriage, and during a woman's first pregnancy. FGM has been a criminal offence in the UK since the Prohibition of Female Circumcision Act 1985 was passed. The Female Genital Mutilation Act 2003 means that as well as being illegal in the UK, it is also illegal for UK nationals or permanent UK residents to carry out FGM abroad or to aid, abet, counsel or procure the carrying out of FGM abroad, even in countries where the practice is legal. So that is basically saying that if you are a UK resident, whether that is permanent or you're a UK national or you were born here, it is illegal for you to go elsewhere to commit genital mutilation. It is considered a crime, regardless of where you go to do it, and regardless of their rules. Indicators of FGM may include difficulty in walking, sitting or standing, spending longer than normal in the bathroom, unusual behaviour after they've been absent from the setting for a period of time, the victim asking for help or telling you that they're in pain, a relative or cutter visiting from abroad, a special occasion or ceremony to become a woman or prepare for marriage. There is a mandatory duty to report to police any case where an act of FGM appears to have been carried out on a girl under the age of 18, or if she has told you that it has happened. So you have a duty to report to the police anyone that appears to have had FGM carried out on them, but also if someone has told you that that has happened, whether they're over the age of 18 or under the age of 18, you have a duty to report that. It's important to remember that members of your staff team, so us as practitioners or managers, may be under the age of 18 and still classed as children, so that you need to be vigilant in spotting the signs of abuse in colleagues too. So for us, obviously we're looking at early years, but what this is saying is you have a duty of care to one another to be able to spot those signs, because it does still happen in adults. It also happens, in our students. We might have volunteers who are under the age of 18 that could be experiencing those things. Has anyone heard about breast ironing or flattening before?
I've done a course on it on one of my when I was working in the kitchen, funny enough, where they try and restrict the growth in the breast to stop them being attracted, for boys to be attracted to them, and things like that. It was quite sickening, to be honest.
Yeah, actually.
All of.
And I think that's the saddest part about all of this, is actually it is just about restricting girls and their enjoyment of sexual activity, so that to kind of allow people to, basically what we're saying here is girls are only there to produce babies, but yet we're doing all of these things for them that means that they're not then able to necessarily support the babies that they do have as well.
The thing is, with breast ironing, a lot of it is the mum or the aunt or someone that does it. It's not as if it's someone different.
Yeah.
It's someone in the does it, like a female in the family.
Yeah. And again,
yeah, but who came up with it? It's all these men. I'm telling you.
Listen, don't give Jenny the ump. She's already mentioned noodle now. But and it is, it's, but and that's the deepness of it, though, isn't it? Like, we've got all of these men who don't want their children or their partners to be sexually attractive to other people. So, let's get another female to iron their breasts or mutilate their genitals.
But I also think that from a parent, I know they think it's okay to do, but I think it's them thinking it's protecting you from rape. And because in third world countries, girls, because they've got breasts and stuff, they get raped in early age. So they want to prevent it. So that's why I think that is what their thinking mentality is, that they're protecting them, but really they're not.
And that, I think all of those things that we've just spoken about is what makes it so sad, because actually, we're creating even more significant harm in trying to protect them, because people are predators at the end of the day, isn't it? So, according to the United Nations, it's Breast ironing is typically carried out between the ages of 11 and 15 as girls enter puberty, and is often done, as we said, by the victim's own family under the misguided intention of protecting her from rape and sexual harassment. Amina, do you want to do the training, babe?
No.
You may as well. It's thought that about 1,000 girls in West African communities across the UK have been subjected to the practice, but the figure could be much higher. As well as the extreme pain and psychological damage, the practice puts young women at increased risk of developing cysts, infections, and cancer. It can leave women with inverted nipples, which means they are unable to breastfeed their own children. Honor-based abuse is a violent crime or incident which may have been committed to protect or defend the honor of the family or community. Women and girls are the most common victims of honor-based abuse. However, it can also affect men and boys. Crimes of honor do not always include violence, and they might include forced marriage, domestic abuse, coercion, sexual or psychological abuse, threats of violence, or being held against their will or taken somewhere that they don't want to go. Child abuse linked to faith or belief. The National FGM Centre tells us that child abuse linked to faith or belief is a hidden crime which makes it difficult to quantify in terms of magnitude. Cases have been recorded worldwide across various communities and religions, including Christians, Muslims, and Hindus. Abuse may happen anywhere, but is most commonly within the child's home. Child abuse linked to faith includes belief concepts of witchcraft, which is the spirit and possession of demons and devil acting through children or leading them astray, which is often seen in Christian beliefs. It's not an exhaustive list, and there'll be other instances where children have been harmed when adults think that their actions have brought bad fortune. For example, telephoning a wrong number, which some people believe allows malevolent spirits to enter the home. Wow. Most of the indicators may appear similar to other types of maltreatment and include reports that they are or have been accused of being evil and they need the devil beaten out of them. If they are made to wear some form of paraphernalia that could be of a religious nature, their personal care deteriorates or they have marks such as bruises or burns, being viewed as a scapegoat when family circumstances change for the worse, a child with no essential role in the family compared to other siblings, attendance at school becomes irregular, or they are taken out of school altogether without another school place having been organised. So they can all be indicators of abuse linked to faith. So looking at CSE, CCE and child trafficking and modern slavery, both child criminal exploitation and child sexual exploitation are forms of abuse that occur when an individual or group takes advantage of an imbalance of power to coerce, manipulate, deceive a child into taking part in criminal or sexual activity. It may involve an exchange for something that the victim needs or wants, and for the financial advantage or increased status of the perpetrator or facilitator, or through violence or the threat of violence. CE and CSE can affect children, both male and female, and can include children who have been moved for the purpose of exploitation. That would be child trafficking. Child sexual exploitation is a form of child sexual abuse. It occurs when an individual or group takes advantage of the imbalance of power to coerce, manipulate, or deceive a child or young person under the age of 18 into sexual activity in exchange for something the victim needs and wants, or for the financial advantage of increased status of the perpetrator or facilitator. So if there's somebody under the age of 18 and they're seeing a 30-year-old man who has a car, that man will then might give them things, or that person, should I say, might give them things, whether that's items of clothing, whether that's jewelry, whether that's cash, whether that's emotional support, or whether that's emotional support or what's the word I'm looking for? Monetary things. It becomes sexual exploitation because that person is taking advantage of them while they're under the age of 18. Indicators of CSE include changes in emotional well-being, misuse of drugs and alcohol, having money or things that they can't or don't explain, going missing for periods of time, so coming home late or missing school, children who have older boyfriends or girlfriends, children who suffer from sexually transmitted infections or become pregnant, making more calls or sending more texts, possibly on a new phone, unexplained injuries, and refusing to seek medical help.
So I think Mercy had her hand up.
Sorry, Mercy, I didn't see.
I was going to talk about the child exploitation one. A thing that they do sometimes, even with gangs, is the I can't remember the exact name, but it was like the chicken shop thing, where older man will see the group of children standing out for the chicken shop, and they will buy them chicken and chips, for example, and they'll say, "Oh, you can just pay me next time," and it happens again and again, and that's the way that some gang members are able to get children into the gang, because it's now, oh, you owe me because I've been paying for this for you and stuff. And sometimes that even might be a way that they could even get sexually exploit them and stuff like that. Yeah, that's just what I want to say.
Thank you, Mercy. That's quite scary, isn't it? So it's such a common thing. Children love chicken and chips. So for that person to then simply say, "Oh, let me buy them chicken and chips," now that child owes me. Now I'm going to manipulate them. Now I'm going to gaslight them into sexual exploitation. And as much as it's easy to think, "Oh, that doesn't happen," or that's few and far between, I actually think it's more common than we probably are aware of. If you even just thinking about children like Shamima Begum. So looking at child criminal exploitation, county lines is a term used to describe gangs and organised criminal networks involved in exporting illegal drugs using dedicated mobile phone lines or other form of deal line. Children and vulnerable adults are exploited to move, store and sell drugs and money. Offenders will often use coercion, intimidation, violence, including sexual violence, and weapons to ensure compliance of their victim. Children can be targeted and recruited into county lines in a number of locations, including schools, further and higher educational institutes, pupil referral units, children's homes and care homes. Children are also increasingly being targeted and recruited online using social media. Indicators of county lines include persistently going missing from school or home or being found out of the area, unexplained acquisitions of money, clothes or mobile phones, excessive receipts of text, phone calls and having multiple handsets, relationships with controlling or older individuals or groups, leaving home or care without explanation, suspicion of physical assault and unexplained injuries, parental concerns, carrying weapons, significant decline in school results or performance, as well as gang association or isolation from peers and social networks, and self-harm or significant changes in emotional well-being. Child trafficking is a form of modern slavery. The NSP defines child trafficking as the recruitment and movement of children for the purpose of exploitation. Trafficking in people includes a collection of crimes spanning a variety of countries and involving an increasing number of victims, resulting in considerable suffering and or those who trafficked. It includes the exploitation of children through force, coercion, threat, and the use of deception and human rights, such as debt bondage, deprivation of liberty, lack of control over one's labour. So the debt bondage is where you kind of basically tie people into a situation with money, as Mercy was saying earlier, that situation of like, well, I've done this for you, I've given you this money, I've shared this with you, now you owe me. It includes the movement of people across borders and the movement and exploitation within the borders. This is why P. Diddy got done for trafficking, by the way, guys, because he was sending people from one place to another to do law-breaking things. Naughty. Those who are trafficked have very little choice in what happens to them and usually suffer abuse due to the threats and use of violence used against them and their families. It's a form of child abuse and requires a child protection response. Moving on to domestic abuse. The Domestic Abuse Act. Sorry, did anyone have any questions? I can't really see hands up. So if you do have something that you want to share, feel free to take your mic off and jump in.
So, Mel, I just wanted to add to the trafficking and everything else and what Mercy said. It's not just the vulnerable children that they are going for.
Yeah.
They are just picking, like they're experts at picking people.
Yeah.
You know, they can see that someone wants something, so they get it. So it's not just the vulnerable we need to look out for in general. It's everybody.
Yeah, because I think even, you know, when you think about, you might think, it's the poor children or it's the children who don't get love at home, but actually there could be any indicator. If that perpetrator believes that they could easily manipulate that child, they're going to go ahead and attempt it. And I know I've mentioned Shamima Begum, and I think she's quite a controversial character, but a lot of this legislation was put into place because of children like Shamima Begum who were trafficked and who were exploited for criminal reasons and sexual reasons also. You know, she came from a decent family in Bethnal Green that no one was too concerned about. So she was neither rich nor poor, but she didn't have any specific needs, and she came from quite a loving, caring family, and it was still that easy for her to be manipulated.
Can I say, one of my friend's husbands, they live in Camden. He grew up playing, obviously, it's a block of flats, so all the children are playing downstairs. But there was this group that would give them little chocolates, little sweeties. Then it went to cigarettes. After cigarettes, it went to drugs. And then obviously they couldn't pay them back with, you know, they had the taste for the drugs and heroin. And then he's now addicted to heroin. And, you know, he used to go, you know, deal drugs for them and then, you know, get his addiction. You know, it's not nice. It's just horrible the way the family is now. It's, you know, and he can't control it. There's nothing he can do.
Because he's so addicted.
Yeah.
And how old is he now, Amina?
Now he's 42.
Wow. And that started when he was really young.
Yeah, really young. It was chocolate, sweeties. Then it was cigarettes. After cigarettes, it was cannabis and, you know, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then it went to heroin, and then he's proper addicted. And they would tell him to sell things for them on the street, and then he'd get his fix, otherwise he wouldn't.
Wow, that's crazy. It's really sad that and so many people are just getting away with it.
Yep.
So looking at domestic abuse, the statutory definition is clear that domestic abuse may be a single incident or a course of conduct which can encompass a wide range of abusive behaviours. So it could be that, you know, there's been a fight at home that particular evening. It doesn't necessarily have to be between the mum and dad, but a fight within the home, or it could be that there's a series of things that have been happening and that continue to happen that children are being made aware of. So it includes behaviours such as physical and sexual abuse, violent or threatening behaviour, controlling or coercive behaviour, economic abuse, psychological, emotional, or other abuse. Under the statutory definition, both the person who is carrying out the behaviour and the person to whom the behaviour is directed towards must be aged 16 or over, and they must be personally connected. So both the two people, the person who is doing the behaviour and the person who is receiving the behaviour, must be over age 18 and be personally connected. So they're over 16. So they're considered not an adult, but over the age of 16. So they're technically not considered a child, and there needs to be a connection, whether that's a brother and sister, an aunt and uncle, or whether that's parents who are in a relationship. So the definition ensures that different types of relationships are captured, including ex-partners and family members. All children can experience and be adversely affected by domestic abuse in the context of their home life, where domestic abuse occurs between family members, including where those being abusive do not live with the child. Experiencing domestic abuse can have significant impact on children. Does anyone have any questions? All children can experience, did I just read that? Section 3 of the Domestic Abuse Act 2021 recognises the impact of domestic abuse on children 0 to 18 as victims in their own right if they see, hear or experience the effects of abuse. Young people can also experience domestic abuse within their own intimate relationships. This form of peer-on-peer abuse is sometimes referred to as a teenage relationship abuse. Depending on the age of the young people, this may not be recognised in the law under the statutory definition of domestic abuse. So if one person or more are under the age of 16. However, as with any child under 18, where there are concerns about safety or welfare, child safeguarding procedures should also be followed, and both young victims and perpetrators should be offered support. I think we need to unpick that a little bit. What are our thoughts on this paragraph here? Young people can also experience domestic abuse within their own intimate relationships. This form of peer-on-peer abuse is sometimes referred to as teenage relationship abuse. Depending on the age of the young people, this may not be recognised in law under the statutory definition of domestic abuse. So that's basically saying to us that, say, I don't know, you have a 15-year-old girl who's in a relationship with a 17-year-old girl. The law doesn't recognise that as breaking the law under the statutory definition of domestic abuse, but it might be referred to as teenage relationship abuse, which doesn't have kind of the same effects as domestic abuse in law in terms of prosecution.
Is it because they're immature and then they see it's just like children fighting? Is that what it means?
I think it could be, and I think the idea is it's around the immaturity of it, but I think that's the scariest part, because I really don't think that anyone at that age should be having relationships anyway, but that's just my opinion. But I think if we're going to put into law what domestic abuse looks like, then we especially need to be protecting the more immature minds, because they don't have that fully developed brain yet to be able to encompass everything that's actually happening to them. So I find it quite scary that the law will see that slightly differently.
Isn't that they can't communicate properly with words? That's why they use their hands, isn't it? I think it's that, because not everybody is immaturely, like, their speech and everything is developed then properly, I don't think.
I think I don't know if it's to do with them not being able to necessarily communicate properly. I think that it's more about how they.
Coping with emotions, I don't think they can.
What do you
That's why they
mean?
lash out. Like, I think teenagers, if they can't express themselves
Yeah.
emotionally, they lash out. They use their hands. Even like people who do bullying, it's some kind of
It's like a
expression.
reaction.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
that's why it is, or it's either them learning from their parents, like, and then
this is why I find
copying.
it so scary, because I don't think that, I think that is then up to the police to decide whether or not they press charges, isn't it? But I think it's quite scary to know that because one or more of you are under the age of 16, I guess it then becomes a different form of abuse. I guess if one person is under the age of 16, it then becomes just child abuse rather than it being domestic abuse. I think that's more along the lines of what they're saying, rather than it be like we're not going to recognize it because it's just because teenagers don't know how to manage their emotions.
Yeah.
I think
So if they go to the police, they're not going to do nothing.
if they go to the police, it's not recognized but in law as domestic abuse, but it could be recognized as a different type of abuse, because it's still, if one person is under the age of 16 and one person is over the age of 16, then it's that means the person who's over the age of 16 is doing something to the person under the age of 16, so that's a form of child abuse instead.
So is that sexual abuse then, or?
It would depend on what they were doing.
Okay. Thank you.
That's okay. So the Domestic Abuse Act 2021 statutory guidance provide further advice for frontline professionals who have responsibility for safeguarding and supporting victims of domestic abuse, including children. The guidance provides further information about the different forms of domestic abuse and the impact of domestic abuse on children. If you are concerned about a colleague, child, family member, you should speak to your DSL. If you're unable to seek support, there are external agencies that you can contact, such as Refuge or the National Domestic Abuse Helpline. Don't forget, this is recorded, so you can access it at any time. Peer-on-peer or child-on-child abuse is defined by the NSPCC as abuse that takes place between children of a similar age or stage of development. This can also be called child-on-child. When we think about potential abusers, it's important to remember that peer-on-peer or child-on-child abuse may occur in the form of bullying, physically hurting another child, emotional abuse, or sexual abuse. You report this in the same way that you do for adults abusing children and take advice from appropriate professionals. We're very briefly going to cover prevent duty here, but we will come back and do a little bit more of an in-depth focus on prevent duty. The prevent duty was introduced in July 2015 It's a duty on all schools and registered early years providers to have due regard to preventing people being withdrawn into terrorism and to report any concerns that they have. This includes Islamist extremists and extreme right-wing groups. The Prevent duty places duty on early years providers to promote fundamental British values such as individual liberty, democracy, rule of law, mutual respect and tolerance for those with different faiths and beliefs. In England, the British values are a statutory requirement of the Early Years Foundation. As such, practitioners should embed these values in their everyday practice, preparing children with the skills and attitudes that they need to positively interact. So just having a think about, before we go to that bit, because I don't think it's going to ask us, just having a think about the British values, individual liberty, democracy, rule of law, mutual respect. Just, I want you to just jot down in the chat for me some different ways that we show those in everyday practice. Yep, golden rules, asking for opinions, sharing opinions, celebrating different cultures, voting, giving choices. Lovely. Learning about other people's culture. Happy Rosh Hashanah, guys. Being respectful, following routines. Voting. Lovely. Thank you very much. Look at you lot, so clever. So, individual liberty is supporting children to have a positive sense of themselves, building their self-confidence and self-esteem through enabling them to take risks in their play, talk about their experiences, identify and name their feelings, follow their interests, and so on. And I think it's when you think about actually how much input you have in a child's life just based on something as simple as asking them about their birthday, or them sharing a picture that they've drawn with you. That is stuff and information that you're sharing with another child that is going to teach them lifelong lessons. Democracy, encouraging children's views in daily practice, encouraging them to make decisions, taking turns and collaborating on ideas. Rule of law is creating the settings rules with the children, for example, helping them to understand their own behaviour and also setting those boundaries with children. Even things like I've told the children that they're not allowed to run on the path outside by the nursery gate. That is a rule that we remind children of every day. Mutual respect, children recognising similarities and differences between themselves and others. Someone the other day was a bit taken aback when a child had said to me that my skin was brown. But not everything has to be offensive, and it's okay, and it's actually important for them to be able to recognize the difference between themselves and others. It's more about how you manage that. So the mutual respect side of it would be when they recognize that our skins are different, but it's not negative. It doesn't have to be a negative. It can just be a recognition. Recognition, is that even a word? So tired.
It is now.
Dear 23 in a Happy Orchids house. Mel is making up words. Children living in homes with radicalised adults who will be affected by what they see, hear, experience, and may act out these experiences in the setting. It is essential that staff recognise the signs of radicalisation and extremism and know how to report any concerns that they have. Signs in very young children may include acting out a scenario in their play, including language or actions that would suggest a child has heard or seen extremist material. A child drawing images that suggest that they have observed or heard extremist views. A child may wear clothing with images or language from extremist groups. I would even go so far as to talk about parents in this situation. So, whether that's a parent who recognizes that their view is extremist or not, I think we need to be really mindful of some of the things that some of our parents might say based on where our setting is, and how that comes across. Because to be quite transparent, I recently had a parent say that they weren't used to, their child wasn't used to children of other faiths and backgrounds, and they might act out. To me, that is a concern, because whilst they might not have an extremist or radicalized view, they do have an ignorant view. And just the fact that they were so openly able to express that their child isn't around brown people or people from other faiths gives alarm bells to me, because that means that they're missing some information and that they also have some fear around that. So that's where it's my job as a nursery manager to then educate our parents on different faiths and the rules that we follow, and also remind them of the British values, not British values. So if you do have concerns, make sure you share them with your DSL. Contact your local channel panel. Channel is a government-based, what's the word I'm looking for? Government-based link, I guess, where you can get advice from if you feel that somebody does have extremist views. You can also contact the Prevent line that is run by the police. And if you think a child is in immediate danger, you call 999. Prevent is the one case where the duty is all on you as the individual to report. If you think that somebody is at risk of being harmed via Prevent, you have a duty to contact the Prevent advice line or the police if they're in immediate danger. So when working with children and families, practitioners have opportunities to get to know about a child's family life and extended family and friends. This helps us to understand a child's early experiences, to identify important people in their lives, and to help develop an individual learning journey for each child. It is why cultural capital is important. Thank you, Mercy. Mercy's just put in the chat, this is why cultural capital is important, because if you're not sharing who you are as an individual, unfortunately, people will have that ignorant view because they don't know any better. That's where we come in to educate one another and also challenge people. I'll give you an example of another experience that I've had in the last few weeks, was where somebody referred to me in a professional setting. Somebody referred to their line manager as rude because they're African, and then explained to me, went on to explain to me that that's what people say, isn't it, about Africans, that they're rude. So, we shouldn't be surprised. And then dug a little bit deeper and then went on to explain that even Jamaicans say that about Africans. And I actually challenged this person. The person then cried because I challenged them as a Jamaican in the company of somebody else whose children are African. That person then stood in front of us and cried and just said they're sorry, it's their age and that they didn't know any better. I don't accept that. and I don't think, and I wouldn't expect any of you to accept that, whether that was being said to you or said about somebody. It's important that we challenge these moments, because without that challenge, people will continue to play the victim whilst victimizing you, and that is definitely not okay. So yeah, that's why cultural capital is important, and that's why it's important that we express and show who we are and what our values are, so that we can dispel all of these misunderstandings of people's silly brains. Just remember, this is being recorded. Anyway, when working with families and practitioners, having opportunities to get to know about the child's family life and extended family and friends helps us to understand their early experiences, allowing us to identify important people in their lives and help develop an individual learning journey for the child. It helps practitioners to identify any safeguarding concerns that may be happening outside of the setting. In a child's home environment, or if a child is suffering emotional abuse due to witnessing domestic abuse, or a child being subjected to FGM. Abuse can have both short and long-term effects on children, including insecure and disorganized attachments, reduced cognitive functioning, negative impact on emotional regulation and executive functioning, emotional and behavioral difficulties, greater risk of exclusion from school, post-traumatic stress disorder, increased risk of chronic disease, mental ill health, substance misuse, and being vulnerable to other forms of abuse. We will quickly go through online safety, and then we will do the final quiz for this module. And then I think we're probably going to stretch out the break a little bit, because we need brain breaks. So, teaching children to stay safe online is an integral part of our everyday safeguarding practices. Statistics from Ofcom show that children and parents' media use and reports shows that 92% of 3 to 4-year-olds use video sharing platforms. Just let that sink in. 92% of 3 to 4-year-olds use video sharing platforms, whether that's, I'm assuming, YouTube or Facebook, Instagram. Children have access to that. 48% send messages or send voice notes, make video calls. 32% use live streaming apps and websites. You may not provide access to the internet in your own setting, but children may be accessing it at home, so ensure you support them to develop safe online practices. Create opportunities to discuss your approach to online safety as a team and share strategies you can use to protect children and families. So, we currently don't, in fact, I restricted the use in the preschool of the computers, and since they have actually removed the computers from the preschool room. But I think we've all been in the preschool room where we've played something for the children on YouTube, and the children will start accessing the screen and doing bits and pieces and changing things and clicking on this and clicking on that. So let's just briefly have a quick chat with our mics off to discuss what things that we can do to support the children and protect them from online abuse. What things might we do?
I
Go
think
on.
talking about it with them, letting them know the dangers is important.
Monitoring as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You
So
can
talking
put the
about it with
age
them.
consent on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also explaining that, as Treasure's saying, like I've just put a restriction on my child's phone, because spending 4 hours on YouTube doing what is dangerous, because I don't know, I can't monitor exactly what you can see, but I can monitor how much access you have to that. So we've already monitored in the setting how much access they have, but having those conversations with them is so important so that they can recognize what it is that they need to do to protect themselves when they're not in your care.
Can I ask, Fortnite and Roadblocks, children are playing on them with other people. How do you know who's an adult and who's a child in those games?
You don't. And I think there's actually like a YouTuber, who goes around like catching predators from these children's sites. And
God.
He's literally been banned recently, I think, from TikTok, excuse me, because he's been banned from Roblox because he was finding predators on their site and basically doxing their information, sharing their information online, and Roblox have banned him from being able to access their site.
But Roadblocks is actually for children, like young children. Why are they doing that? I think he was doing good, wasn't he? If
He was doing good, yeah.
It's not just for young children, it's for everybody.
But this is the issue. You can't police who plays on these games.
And that is very, very dangerous. But what can do, because everyone can try it maybe to less hours, but it's very hard.
Yep. So I think on Roblox, you can have. No, that's Minecraft. So I know that I restricted the ability for cross conversations to be used. So Leon was only allowed to add friends with my permission, and I would have to put in a password. But then he was also not allowed to talk in the group chats. There are ways that you can change your privacy settings to stop that from happening. But again, children are not stupid, and they do feel like they're missing out, and they will find ways.
Yeah.
So having appropriate filters, using privacy settings, gaining permission, showing you guys have online safety training. We do regular reviews of our online safety policy. I don't know how many of you have read them, but they do get done yearly or anytime new changes are introduced. Providing antivirus and software in the setting we already do. All of our computers and things being password protected. We share regular updates. We don't do that because we don't have access to it, but we have in place, so for all of our tablets and our laptops, they are monitored by an IT agency who then will put up blocks on things if they're deemed to be inappropriate. So talking regularly to children, providing activities and stories about staying safe online we do, and using friendly search engines such as the Google in the classroom, in the preschool room, is on a child-friendly search engine, so it won't show you any content for anyone over the age of 12. Abuse can happen to anyone at any time. Abuse occurs to children of all races, socio-economic classes, religions, family structures, and communities. However, research has shown that there are some characteristics that make some children more vulnerable to abuse. This does not mean that having one of those characteristics automatically means a child is being abused. But we've spoken about all of these children: non-verbal children, children with SEND, looked after children. A looked after child is someone that might be in foster care and that is being taken care of by the local authority. Domestic abuse, parents with learning difficulties, children who are absent for a prolonged period, children whose parents have mental health, substance misuse, or children living in a home with domestic abuse. Substance misuse, mental ill health, and domestic abuse are indicators of increased risk of harm to children and young people and can be referred to as the trio of vulnerabilities. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'll print some of those and just have them up on our safeguarding board in the toddler room. Research in this area has shown there is a large overlap between these parental risk factors, cases of child death and serious injury, and generally poorer outcomes for children across all ages. Remember that having one or more risk factors does not necessarily mean that a child will be abused. Families and children react to personal and societal factors differently, but they are warning indicators, and practitioners must be aware of the potential vulnerabilities of children with one or more of the above factors. I will add these links to the chat for you to be able to access. And we will go through the self-assessment. We'll do it in the same format of going with the majority answer of the 1, 2, or 3, and then we'll go over the answers at the end, and then we'll break for lunch. So, does FGM stand for forced genital mutilation, female genital mutilation, or frontal genital malpractice? 1, 2, or 3? Oh, J-Dog was in it.
2.
Lovely. Thank you. 2. The prevent duty was introduced to 1, prevent people from talking about terrorism and radicalisation. 2, prevent people from being drawn into violent behaviour. 3, prevent people from being drawn into terrorism and to report any concerns that they have.
Yeah, 3.
3.
I hope so. Whew. In this module, we've examined a range of additional types of abuse and the signs and symptoms of FGM, breast ironing, honour-based abuse, child abuse linked to faith or belief, child sexual exploitation, child criminal exploitation, child trafficking, and modern slavery and domestic abuse. We have looked at the factors that can make some children more vulnerable to abuse and how to protect children online, alongside considering how practitioners can ensure their own safety. I actually thought that I thought we'd done the last module, but we have one more. Would you like to, let's take a vote. Would you like to start this module and do the rest of this one and then take a break, or do you want to break now for 45 minutes?
I'd say get it out of the way.
Jenny said, carry on. Debbie said, get it out of the way. All right, let's go. If I don't use my words properly, I apologise. So, what are we looking at? Working with children and families gives us a responsibility to report any concerns we have about a child. In this module, we are going to look at the action you should take if you have any concerns about a child, what to do if your concerns are not taken seriously, what to do if you have concerns about a colleague, examine how to use the 7 golden rules of information sharing, mean data protection law. No, read again. Examine how to use the 7 golden rules of information sharing, mean data protection law is upheld, and understand why it is important to monitor children's attendance. So keeping children at the centre of our safeguarding and the child protection policies and procedures is essential. Sadly, there are endless reported cases of babies and young children who have been killed in their homes by family or extended family members, or who have died as a result of an incident in an early years setting. We're going to look at some real life cases and consider how the deaths could have been prevented if safeguarding signs and symptoms, safeguarding policies, and safeguarding concerns had been followed. Watch this video report into 4-year-old Daniel Pelker's death following the ongoing abuse from his mother and her boyfriend. The video highlights the missed opportunities that the professionals had to help protect Daniel. 1 second. We can't hear. 1 sec. Really? Of course, it can't find the speaker.
Well, did you mute yourself when you put the video on?
Let me know if you can hear this. Can you hear that?
No, I can't.
No.
No.
No. I'll do it again. It started to work. Yeah, we can hear that.
I can hear it now.
I can't hear it.
I hear it either.
I still can't hear anything.
Do you want us to watch it on the link and come back to the group?
Yeah. I've sent it to the group chat. If you watch it on there, and then we'll come back here to discuss.
Okay. All done.
All done.
Yeah, finished.
We'll just wait for the others to come back.
It makes you wonder how many times you have to contact either the police
That's
or
very
social
sad.
It is very sad.
actually done.
I agree with you, Debbie, though. But like, the thing is, like it says, like it's all good and well. Oh, we learned our lessons, but who's taking responsibility for that? No one.
Exactly. They say that, and that's what you hear. Oh, we've learned our lesson and we've put this legislation in place. And that's where it ends. Like, but yeah, no one's taking responsibility for that child's life. Even when you look at how the case was handled, like the investigation into his actual death, nobody took responsibility. Same as with Baby P. It was every other council's fault. No one wanted to take responsibility for it.
But the fact that no one even spoke to the child, I just find it's crazy.
Yeah.
Perhaps they thought that the child wouldn't be able to tell them. You know, some people think, oh yeah, a child just, will make things up and things like that. But you've got to take that with. There's still bits that you can take out the conversation that you have with them.
Of course, and there's still more information that will come of that conversation, isn't there? But the fact that they just made a decision about that poor boy's life without him even having the courtesy, like without them even having the courtesy to speak to him, it's really quite shocking, to be honest. Right, is everyone in? Okay, let's crack on. So, Genevieve Meehan was 9 months old and she attended Tiny Toes Nursery in Cheadle in Stockport. Genevieve died in the nursery on the 9th of May 2022. Following an investigation, Kate Ruffley, 37, the deputy manager at the nursery, was found guilty of manslaughter. Ruffley strapped the 9-month-old Genevieve face down on a beanbag. She was left on the beanbag for 90 minutes and was seen struggling and coughing on CCTV footage. But Ruffley did not check on her until she was unresponsive and blue. Jurors heard that Genevieve, the daughter of barrister John Meehan and solicitor Kate Wheeler, died from asphyxiation caused by the stresses placed on her body by a very unsafe sleeping environment. Prosecutor Peter Wright told the jury that Ruffley had taken against Genevieve in the days before her death. She was recorded mockingly singing "Genevieve, Go Home" as the child cried and was heard to call her vile. He said Ruffley had punished Genevieve for the perceived imposition the youngster had placed on her time. Sentencing Ruffley, Mrs. Justice Ellenbogen told her that Genevieve's death was absolutely avoidable. The issues that were raised during the trial included not following the EYFS with the 1-to-3 ratios of the baby room. Oh my gosh, it was reported that ratios often were 1-to-6 and 2-to-11. I mean, that is really quite shocking to hear. And bear in mind, since this was in 2022, in the 2021 EYFS, they actually, which is where they stated that ratios could be nursery wide. So as long as you have the appropriate amount of people on site, then you were covered. But to leave 2 adults or even 1 adult with 6 children is absolutely astonishing. No regular sleep checks were carried out. Sleep checks, for reference, should be every 10 minutes. Negative comments were made to Genevieve in the week before her death. Rough handling of Genevieve prior to her death. not following safer sleep practices. So do you think that that child, that baby, 9 months old, felt safe in her environment, knowing that, you know, she was being mocked and was having these negative comments made to her at such a young age, as well as people being rough with her? Do you think she felt safe in her environment? Because I'm sure her parents felt like that she was put in a safe place.
This is very sad. It's disgusting what they've done.
It is. I agree. And I
But
think,
it, to me, that
um,
there was a sort of grudge or something
yeah,
that she didn't like the child or something like that, because why would you say things like that? And that's not right.
I think you've got to have some serious mental health issues to actually not like a child to the point where you are mocking them and being mean to them when they're just 9 months old. Um, and I think it's fair to say that we all have those children that you might not necessarily gel with, or you gel with some others more than you do those children. But imagine how mentally unwell you've got to be to reach that point.
It's not as if they was able to talk back or tell anyone what was, what was happening at the nursery either.
Yeah,
So
madness.
Maybe that's why that woman picked on her, because she couldn't talk
Because
back.
she couldn't talk, yeah. So during the investigation, police charged another member of the baby room staff with 4 counts of neglect. Rebecca Gregory was sentenced to 3 years following a court case. In April 2022, weeks before Genevieve's death, she was witnessed on CCTV to be verbally abusing and mishandling children, pushing a child's head down, roughly placing a child on the floor, and threatening to kick a child in the head. On one occasion, she swaddled a child so tightly he couldn't move. Seeing the child was visibly distressed, she forced his head down, preventing him from moving. On another occasion, she swaddled a child tightly, telling him to effing go home. Isn't that a weird thing to do for someone who's being paid?
She's got issues, and I don't know how she only got 3 years.
Right?
Yeah, but where were other people? Like the way she was swearing at them, didn't no one hear?
Well, that's the thing though, isn't it? Like the two of them, remember, the nursery
Look at the
ratios were
ratio.
often 2 to 11. So that tells me that Rebecca and her old mate, roughly, were obviously the two people in that room together, just probably bouncing off of one another for being nasty.
Oh, gosh.
So they supported each other's abuse, and she only got 3 years for it. Shocking. These two cases from the same baby room demonstrate a culture of aggressive and abusive behaviour towards young babies. These cases should have been reported by staff in the room and colleagues witnessing these types of comments and behaviours towards them, regardless of their role in the setting. Reporting this behaviour could have prevented a child's death and prevented other children suffering abuse. The deaths of Daniel and Genevieve were avoidable had concerns been raised and followed up and acted upon. Practitioners working on the front line can be the difference a child needs to help keep them safe. It is essential that you are the voice for the children in your care. Any concerns about a colleague or events in the setting need to be reported. I hope you're all familiar with the whistleblowing policy, because I think we've spoken a lot about the whistleblowing policy in the last couple of months, and we obviously spoke about the changes at the inset day training. So whistleblowing is a term used when a worker passes on information concerning wrongdoing by a colleague. Although you would expect all colleagues in the early years, both internal and external, to be professional at all times. Sorry, I'm yawning. and hold the welfare of safety of every child as their paramount objective, there may be occasions where this does not happen. Examples of inappropriate behaviour could include inappropriate sexual comments, excessive one-to-one attention beyond the requirements of the usual role and responsibilities, inappropriate sharing of images, or derogatory remarks about children. If you have any concerns about a colleague, it's vital that you act in order to protect children. Remember, you are the voice of the child and you must be prepared to think the unthinkable, unfortunately. Your setting must have a whistleblowing policy in place for all staff to follow. If you do not know what your settled whistleblowing policy says, read it through to ensure you understand your responsibilities and know what to do if you have a concern. If your concern is about the designated safeguarding lead, i.e. me or Jenny or Treasure or Mercy, or a person or a member of the management team, and you are not sure who to report to, you must refer to agencies outside of the nursery. This might be your LADO, the police, or the NSPCC. Your setting safeguarding children and child protection policy should set out the contact details you need for external referrals. Contact details should be shared in staff spaces, such as the staff room or in staff areas. If not, you can easily find them for your local area with a quick internet search. We do obviously have those numbers on our ID badges. So, it's an important requirement for early years providers to have and implement safeguarding and child protection policy that sets out how they will protect and safeguard children. Providers must ensure the policy and procedures are met. Can anyone else hear? Jenny says she can't hear anything.
No, I can hear you.
I can hear
I
you.
can hear you.
I can hear you.
Oh, maybe that was from before then. The message
Oh,
just
maybe.
came up and said that.
Sorry, no, that was before when you were trying to watch the video.
Oh, yeah, sorry. How many times have I done that? It does keep on happening. You're right, Mercy. That was a very delayed message. Sorry. And providers must ensure the policy and procedures meet any legislative or statutory guidance, such as the EYFS, and follow the procedures set out by their local safeguarding partners. So your local safeguarding partners would be the police, the local authority, in our case, Redbridge, and health, so that NHS and people like the health visitors, as well as social services. A practitioner's responsibility for safeguarding practice will be set out in the policy. You can find the policy on Atlas. I've also asked for them to be uploaded to the document section of family, as well as in the folders in the staff room and in my office. Take some time to read the setting safeguarding and protection policy. And if you have any questions, please come and ask me or send me a message. We can have group discussions. We can put messages on family. Check that it includes an explanation of the action that it should be taken, an explanation of the action to take in the event of an allegation being made against a member of staff, and the use of mobile phones, cameras, and other electronic devices in the setting, including sexting and sharing indecent images. There's a lot to cover. If you have safeguarding concerns, you all know, I think we cover this so often and we discuss it so often. Report it directly to myself. If I'm not at the setting and you think that a child is at immediate risk of significant harm, in my absence, you would go to Jenny. In mine or Jenny's absence, I would ask you to speak to Treasure or Mercy, who would ask you to put it on my concern. When you do report something on my concern, that does come directly to me, and I'm able to access that away from the setting. So if you have information where no one is at immediate risk and you would rather just minimize who that information is shared with, then send me my concern and I will pick it up from there. The DSL must contact the LADO team to report concerns that you have raised about another member of staff, to seek advice and share any actions that have been taken. It is also worth noting that whatever advice the LADO give, I have to, by law, follow. So once it's escalated to the LADO, that isn't an opinion-based conversation. That is factual. The police might often be involved, but they will ultimately make the decision about what is the best and safest thing to do to safeguard the children in the setting.
So, Mel, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
It's just popped in my head. So, when I worked at a nursery, the police came in.
Yeah.
There was a situation with a child outside of the nursery.
Yeah.
And they were able to gain access to information.
Yeah.
However, my point was, we don't know exactly what's going on exactly. Should we be sharing that information? And
Yeah.
then I was told that because they are police, they are high authority, so they can have that information. Is that still the case?
Do you mean as in we shouldn't be sharing information?
Yeah.
As a setting? Yeah, no.
Because we don't know anything about the situation they have come in for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we have to, so we have a duty of care to share information to the police, but in a confidential manner.
Yeah.
So that is still the case, even with the data protection laws that came in 2018. However, the police don't have to share information with us.
Yeah.
Because we are not the higher authority, and we don't have that duty of care to remain confidential and protect that data verbally. And it also means that we could then further jeopardize somebody's safety if we were made aware. So, yeah, the police.
So they can just come in and get anything they want, basically.
Yeah. But what we can do is we can make a request via the LADO.
Yeah.
For the police to share that information with us.
Okay.
So, and I've actually just recently done this. We had someone who had been in trouble with the police, and we then had to meet with the LADO to discuss the issue that this person had with the police. The LADO then contacted the police on our behalf. The police will openly share all information with the LADO, and then they make a decision as to whether or not that information should be shared with us to enable us to make. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay. I just was thinking about these instances that you're mentioning. Say, for instance, they came into ours, especially as we are in a Jewish school. We don't know what goes on. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, although we use My Concern, it does ask you for all of these things. It asks you for the child's name, date of birth, the date and time of the incident, the exact words, all of those things that we've discussed. But if you are jotting it down on paper, it's important that when you make these notes on paper, please try not to give any information away that could put that child again at risk, which is why I would always prefer for you to directly write it on My Concern. If you've jotted it down on a piece of paper and you've walked from, I don't know, the preschool room to the baby room to the office, and you've lost that piece of paper in between, it's going to have all of that really sensitive information about that child who is possibly in danger. So please, where possible, do write it down directly on My Concern. So if your concern hasn't been reported or you haven't been updated, what action could you take? In the chat, please. Yeah, contact the Lado. Lado. Speak to your DSL as well. Why are you shouting at me, Sarah? Lado!
Following Amina.
Mina shouted too. Yeah, so we contact the Lado. You can report your concerns to the NSPCC, and you can also go directly to the police. So a low-level concern would be a concern that a low-level concern is a concern that no matter how small, it causes a sense of unease or nagging doubt. That, you know, when you get that thing in your head where you're just like, I should say something, I should say something. If you have that nagging doubt, you need to say something, because whilst it might be low level, you could now be the 18th person that has brought a low level concern. Think back to poor little Daniel Pelker, you know, all of those low level concerns that were ignored actually can save somebody's life. So any concern that an adult might have acted in a way that's inconsistent with the staff code of conduct, and a concern that doesn't meet the harm threshold or is otherwise not serious enough to consider a referral to LADO, they would all be considered low level. Examples of such behaviour can include, but are not limited to, being overly friendly, having favourites. Listen, are you about to write a low level concern about me? Taking photographs of children, engaging with a child on a one-to-one basis in a secluded area, okay, maybe not, and or humiliating children. An existing injury is an injury that a child has occurred outside of the setting, so when the child is not in the care of the nursery. Early years providers, as part of their safeguarding procedures, should have a system that records existing injuries. For example, as you all know, when a parent arrives and tells you about the injury that happened in the home, they need to complete, or we complete on family, the accident form, and we need to share it with them and the manager so that it can be acknowledged. If an injury is observed by a practitioner and the child confirms it happened outside the setting or isn't sure how it happened, complete an existing injuries form. I know it's frustrating, I know it's annoying, but please make sure that you do, to safeguard yourselves and those children. Ask parents to review and sign when you collect. If they haven't, when the parent comes to collect, just have a check. If they haven't acknowledged it, take the tablet to the door and ask them to do so. Recording existing injuries enables you to alert to any issues of concern in the child's life. So the UK General Data Protection Regulation Act, GDPR, and human rights laws are not barriers to justified information sharing, but provide a framework to ensure that personal information about living individuals is shared appropriately. So this is what, going back to what Jenny was talking about. Safeguarding concerns must always be reported regardless of concerns over data protection, GDPR. The Data Protection Act is not a barrier for sharing information. Try and think of your, no, I don't want to do that. So, 1, all children have the right to be protected from abuse and neglect. Protecting a child from such harm takes priority over protecting their privacy. So this is again going back to what we were speaking about. If it's not necessary for us to have the information, but it protects their rights, then the protection of the rights comes first. So we have 2 questions. You have a safeguarding concern about a child in your care. What do you do next? Do you, 1, say nothing as you're not sure if you have concrete evidence? 2, tell a friend at home because they're not connected to the nursery and don't know the child? Or 3, immediately report your concerns to your DSL? in chat box. 3.
3.
I'm interested if anyone would say anything different, but I trust you enough. You. Which of the following is true if you have a safeguarding concern? Tick all that apply. You should report your concerns to your safeguarding lead or manager immediately.
Yes.
You should watch and wait and see if anyone comes up with a
No.
concern first. No.
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 Thank you. Your DSL must contact the LADO team to report
Yes.
the concerns that you have raised
Yes.
and share any actions that have been taken. You're saying yes?
Wait.
If the incident is not reported by the DSL, you should contact social services and report your concerns.
Yes.
Yes.
Hang on a minute, it's not ticked them. Right, I'm not imagining that, am I? How bizarre.
Oh.
I don't know, but we were all right. So if we attempt the quiz, we need 9.6 out of 12 to pass. I wonder if we can get if we get, you reckon 12 out of 12?
Yeah.
And then I've got to buy you some Cadbury's. So early years practice is underpinned by government legislation, national guidance, or magistrates' courts. 1, 2, or 3.
1.
Rouge is like, we are getting 12 out of 12. Which of the following are sites of accidental injuries? Injuries to the knees, bruises to the forehead, bruises on the cheeks. 1, 2, or 3.
Knees.
Knees or
Oh, that's injuries.
Yeah, which of the following are sites of accidental injuries?
Accidental injuries.
Knees and forehead.
Yeah, forehead looks like.
forehead.
Yeah.
Bruises. Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, they can bump their head.
Knees and forehead. Knees and forehead. Which of the following are sites of non-accidental injuries?
Ears, nose.
Number 4.
Ears. Black
Mm.
eyes.
Did someone say nose?
It's all.
Not bruises to the shin.
You don't think bruises to the shin?
No, there's an
Why?
accidental. There's a with like falling over, running, falling. Not that one.
You could have just cost us 12 out of 12, guys. All staff should report any safeguarding concerns to the organisations outside of the setting if they feel they are not being taken seriously internally.
True.
Yes.
True.
Emotional abuse can be known as psychological abuse.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
The age at which FGM is carried out varies enormously according to the community. Indicate when it might occur. Shortly after birth.
Just after marriage.
First pregnancy.
All of them.
And just
First
after
one,
marriage.
yeah, during the
Second
All
one.
of them.
I think the top one and the
And
bottom
during
one.
childbirth, yes, for all of them.
It's all of them. Remember the reasons why we often find that they are.
Yeah, I remember the
Oh,
first
actually, was
you
it
talking about?
Hang on a minute. Think about, was it during a woman's first pregnancy?
No. It usually happens when they're virgins, isn't it?
During a woman's first pregnancy. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's all of them.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
yes.
we'll go with all of them.
Yes, it is.
Which statement?
Sorry in advance.
Listen, mate, as long as we get 9.6, we're all right. There is no failing. We've all listened well. We've all responded well. We are all winners. Which statement describes the term whistleblowing? Whistleblowing is a term used when a worker passes on information concerning wrongdoing by a colleague. Whistleblowing is a term
First
used to
one.
describe a worker who is vigilant about safeguarding.
Number
First
one.
Number one.
First one.
Which of the following characteristics may make some children more vulnerable to abuse? Children in poverty, non-verbal children, children with SEND, children whose parents had mental ill health.
All of them.
The acronym CALFIBD stands for which of the following? Children's abuse linked to formal beliefs, child abuse linked to faith or belief, child abuse linked to fanatical beliefs.
So
Two. What is the second one?
Number two.
number two.
Domestic abuse can encompass a wide range of behaviours and may be a single incident or pattern of incidents. Domestic abuse is not permitted to physical acts of violence or threatening behaviour not limited, and can include emotional, psychological, controlling or coercive behaviour, sexual abuse and or economic abuse. You might want to read that in your head.
I think it's true.
Yeah, true. It's true.
Jenny knows it's true. If you report a safeguarding concern that is not taken seriously, what other options do you have to report the concern? 1, do nothing. 2, contact your local authority, social services, safeguarding team and report concerns.
Yes.
Report the concerns to the police.
2
3
and
and
4
2, 3 and
and
4.
3.
And it's, yeah. 2, 3, 4.
2, 3, 4. Professionals should use their professional curiosity and be prepared to think the unthinkable. True or false?
False.
True.
True.
Listen, Amina, professionals should use their professional curiosity, so they should ask lots of questions and be prepared to think that even the nicest person can do the wrong thing.
Yeah. Sorry.
Can Amina do something wrong?
Oh my God, why do I get scared? It's so stupid. It literally means nothing. Ah, guys.
How come? That was the
Oh my
I think
No,
that would be the national
Do
guidance
you know
one.
what? It's not. Look, it's the actual, because we've ticked the right thing. There's something going on with this quiz itself, because we've ticked government legislation and that is the correct answer, but it says it's incorrect.
It says
Maybe you need to tick more.
No, they
answers.
would tell you.
I
Oh,
think the
national guidance.
as
Yeah,
well.
national
National
guidance we missed.
guidance, yeah.
So not the nose is
Not
non-accidental. No.
The shins.
What is it? Just
Look, it
after
says
marriage
Just after
is
marriage.
yes.
So
That's
not
when
just
it
after
was,
marriage.
yeah. It's wrong.
You know, I thought of that, but everyone was saying otherwise.
See, that's why I said it's usually virgins and then.
You did say that, yeah. No, but that's when we were talking about whether it was during their first pregnancy or not.
Pregnancy, yeah, but
Yes,
I
that
thought
one
about
was
the
right.
after marriage. As well.
So not children in poverty, even I'm sure that's what we spoke about. And all the rest were correct. So we will I will go back and fix that because I want you to make sure you get your certificates. However, I think we're all aware of the answers, so I'm not going to do it now. 1, because I'm very tired of talking, and 2, because I imagine you're very tired of hearing my voice. So we will break to have something to eat, and then we'll come back and do some of the prevent duty just for an hour. So if we can come back at 1 o'clock, that'd be grand.
Do we have to log out of this or just
I'm gonna hang up
and then just start again at
and just
2?
restart it, yeah, and I'll let you back in at 1.
Yeah. Okay then.
Bye.
Bye. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. See ya.